Okay, everyone, welcome to Results Mastery, and I've got a real treat for you today. I'm going to introduce you to Suzanne in just a minute, so really looking forward to interviewing her. I've been trying to get to do so, and we both got very busy schedules, but we managed to get together for a little while this morning, and as I say, really looking forward to it. I've got a couple of thoughts just to share with you before I do introduce Suzanne. And that is firstly around one of the problems that we all have in business is a lack of expertise. It's very simple. We cannot be an expert at everything, and I think most people, when they go into business because they're experts, what I call operationally. In other words, they're good at doing what the business does, whether that's repairing cars or cutting hair or providing life coaching or, consultancy services. No matter what it is the business does, generally speaking, they do that because the owner of the business is either good at it or because they really enjoy that work. And often they've been doing it for, 10, 20 years, and now they decide to start a business that does that work. Now, the problem with that is lack of expertise. What do I mean? I mean that, they don't necessarily have a financial experience. They certainly often don't have marketing or sales experience. And they don't have HR and legal experience. They just don't understand. We don't know what we don't know. And we try to get along and do as well as we can in all those areas. But if we don't get that advice, that level of advice and support and so on, we can often come unstuck. And when you think that 80% of businesses fold within the first 5 years, they're often, I believe, due to a lack of expertise in a specific area. Now, Suzanne's area is basically the legal side of things, which is a little bit different for me. I've never, had somebody on my podcast that's got expertise in that area, but I do think it's incredibly important. And I also think now, it's with all the, litigation and changes and how the world's going and people, getting in trouble for not doing things that they should do or just not knowing that they really ought to do certain things. It just becomes, I think, even more important. So welcome to the conversation, Suzanne Dibble of Legal Buddy. It's great to have you. Thank you ever so much for your time and really looking forward to talking to you today.
And thank you very much for having me. Delighted to be here.
It's my pleasure. I thought I'd kick off, Suzanne, by just asking you to tell people a little bit about your background, where you came from in terms of, I know that you worked for a big law firm and you were, really busy, really successful. I assume doing lots of travelling in and out of London and all over the place. And from what I gather about your story, you had a pretty sort of hectic, incredibly busy life. Tell people about that to start with, if you would, please.
Sure. I suppose in a way my life couldn't look any more different now with my nice commute from my bedroom to my home office, which I'm exceptionally happy with, I have to say.
Yeah.
But I did the traditional route into law. I went to a sort of very, very limited career advice private school in the northwest of England, where if you were good at science, you were going to be a doctor, and if you weren't good at science, you were going to be a lawyer. It was kind of that. Those were your two options.
Okay.
Fortunately, I was quite taken with the idea of law. I did a placement early on at a very local firm of solicitors in our village, and really liked it. I liked we went to court a few times and really liked meeting the clients in the sort of office environment. And I thought, I can see myself being Ally McBeal. Actually, I don't think Ally McBeal had quite come out by that time. But I went in the traditional route. So I went and did a law degree, went to law school, was lucky enough to get sponsored to go to law school by the firm that I trained with, which was DLA Piper, one of the largest law firms in the world, and stayed with them for many years. I qualified into the mergers and acquisitions department, which is, really the place where the action happens. You're on deals. I think the longest that I stayed up was 3 nights. We stayed up 3 nights with consecutive nights without any sleep to get a deal done. Such was the time pressure.
Yeah.
I think somebody did find me asleep on my keyboard in the middle of drafting the sort of 20th version of the sale and purchase agreement. Great days, lots of fun. Play hard, work hard. We were sort of out until 3 a.m. celebrating a deal, and then back in at sort of 8 to start on the next one. It was a mad time.
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough I was the first ever secondee to Virgin head office. So I worked with Richard Branson whilst I was there.
Wow.
He was still around at that point. He was still very much sort of going into the Notting Hill office there. That was a fantastic experience. I was in their sort of head office where they looked at venture capital deals, because every other day, I think probably every day, they'd get multiple applications from people who were wanting to partner with the Virgin brand.
Yes,
and there's been, a number of success stories of, people with makeup ranges and things like that who did partner with the Virgin brand very successfly. So I sort of sat alongside that department, but got involved in a huge range of projects across the group. And as a result of that, actually, I was nominated by Virgin to the Solicitor of the Year award, which in legal circles is a pretty prestigious awards, national awards for solicitors. And they nominated me for that as a result of the work that I did on my secondment. And I was actually voted runner-up in that award.
Well, so that's quite something.
That was a really, just surprising thing to happen, because, it was totally out of the blue on both counts. And so, I did some amazing deals, travelled the world, lots of fun, lots of adrenaline, lots of late nights, but ultimately not a very healthy lifestyle. And, there certainly wasn't much time, if any time, for exercise and me time and, that kind of thing. And it really came to the crunch when, mergers and acquisitions and private equity that I did, very male dominated. I remember going to the BVCA dinner once, and I think I spotted 10 women out of about 1,000 people.
Wow,
I think it's a little bit better now,
but
back in the day, it was very, very male dominated. So there was one out of the department of sort of 30 fee earners. So with the actual lawyers. And there was one female partner in the corporate department, and I had the office next door to her. And on a Monday night, I heard her say to her 4-year-old son, "Don't cry, darling, I'll see you at the weekend." Oh. And I just thought to myself,
you don't want that.
I was a very ambitious young person. I really was. I loved it. I lived and breathed that law firm and my career. But around about the age of 30, I thought, maybe having a family might be a good thing. And I, to be honest, just could not see myself being that kind of person that had that same career, hired a nanny, and never saw my children. And at that point, I thought, I'm going to move. So I actually moved to a client. I'd worked with ITV previously, and I went and moved to them and actually led the £1 billion digital switchover deal. So when we moved the TV from analogue to the digital signal, I was the lead lawyer for ITV on that deal, which was great experience. And I helped them with other key strategic projects. And then I got headhunted to go to Hampton's estate agents, where I sat on their main board and was their legal director and also operations director, which gave me a great deal of commercial experience. They were owned by Emaar Properties at the time, which is the biggest property company in the world. So it was a fantastic experience what we were doing there. But even with that, even with working in-house and working less hours, I still, I wanted to be more flexible, really, to work around my family. So when I was pregnant with my first child, I decided to set up my own business. I thought really long and hard about who I wanted to help. And ultimately, it was people like me. It was women who'd been in corporates who wanted to set up their own business in order to work flexibly around their families and still maintain their career, their identity, their financial independence, etc. I suppose the best of both worlds, really. And I feel still incredibly fortunate that I was able to to have both, to be there for my family when they've needed me, but to maintain my career and my financial independence. So my first brand was called Lawyers for Mumpreneurs. Terrible name, but did what it, sort of did what it said.
Well, it did what it says on the tin. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And very quickly sort of became the go-to expert in that group. It was a sort of new emerging group of business women.
Okay.
There were conferences springing up. There were networking groups specifically for mumpreneurs. So it was quite easy for me really to establish myself as that go-to expert in that niche. And before I knew it, I was oversubscribed, in the words of Daniel Priestley.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I can go one of two routes. I can either hire lots more lawyers, which I really did not want to do, or I can productize my expertise. So I think I was the first lawyer in the world to help small business owners with, I called it the Small Business Legal Academy, but it was a kind of hybrid of templates, but a lot more, because at the time legal templates were being sold, but they weren't. It was just literally you'd buy a template, and I had so many people coming to me and saying, I've bought this template, I can't work it out. And then I'd look at it and it was for completely the wrong thing. So I thought there's got to be a better way. And I knew that small business owners didn't have the budget necessarily to pay a lawyer to draft a bespoke contract for them.
Yeah.
I put together a legal academy that included a course. It included templates, it included video guides, it included checklists, and really a very holistic resource platform for small business owners to really hold their hands, but in a very affordable way. And that Small Business Legal Academy won a Law Society award. I was heralded by the SRA as pioneering, because really lawyers hadn't done that before, and we've helped many tens of thousands of small business owners with that DIY platform. Yeah. And more recently, as my children have grown up and I've had more time to devote to the business, I've really wanted to give small business owners access, more individual access to me. And that was Legal Buddy arrived basically about 2.5 years ago.
All right. Okay.
And we've managed to structure the membership in such a way that, aside from having access to the most comprehensive resources platform that I think exists, they also get to ask me individual questions as well through very structured legal surgeries. We've also introduced a couple of AI tools that our members are absolutely loving, which have been trained, on my existing resources. Yeah, I'm just loving what you can do with AI at the moment.
Oh, it's just mind blowing, isn't it? It's just incredible.
Yeah, and so Legal Buddy is our absolute passion at the moment. We're growing the membership rapidly. And we just want to reach as many small business owners as we can to let them know about how we can help them, because we know the difference that it makes in a small business owner's life to have that comfort and peace of mind and confidence that they've got everything they need there. We're very much about education, being proactive about putting legal protections in place rather than. I think there's some fairly mediocre sort of 24/7 legal helplines when the problem has happened and you want to try and sort it out. Yeah, we're trying to get in there right at the start and saying, look, if you spend, and we have a special software that we let our members use and we encourage them to book in these sessions. We say if you book in 12 50-minute sessions, and that might be once a week, more if you can do it might be once a month if you're really time pressed. But, with those 12, 50-minute sessions, you can put in place all of your legal foundations. And then your business journey is going to be so much easier, because instead of firefighting all the time, you've got those legal foundations in place and you're going to be growing on a much stronger foundation.
It's much better to have that prevention rather than cure, isn't it? In a legal 100%. And, even a marketing thing. You don't want to mess your marketing up and then go back and go, well, I wish I'd done it this way. Really, really powerful. I love the concept, I've got to say. And I tell you what I really like about Legal Buddy as well is is the live bit, the fact that we get a bit of your time or some of your time as well, because you see these days, lots of online programs, whether it's training programs or whatever, but we get lots of that sort of stuff. But we've no access to go, well, I don't really understand. How do you do that? Can you help me with this? And so I love the combo between, online and templates and all, systems and processes and all that sort of
and
stuff.
It's also about the community.
Getting some line.
Community as well.
Yeah,
that's a really important part of the membership.
Yeah.
Because it's, it can be very lonely, when you maybe left employment and you're setting up your own business.
Yeah.
And I think to be able to come into a very supportive community, not just supported by me and the team, but by the rest of the small business owners that are in there, I think is just really powerful. It gives you again that extra courage, self-confidence, assurance, support to actually put your offer out there if you are at that very early stage, because that's very daunting in itself.
Sure.
And also encouragement to proceed with the legals, because again, I know that's something that small business owners find, they'll put it off for as long as they can.
Yeah.
Because like you say, they've generally not had that experience or background in legals, and they just look at it and just go, because there's so much you need to think about in running a business.
One of the biggest problems right now, I think, as the world changes and we all get more developed, more sophisticated and so on, is that we don't know what we don't know. If you said to me, are you all sorted from a legal point of view, Steve? I go, well, yeah, I think so, but there's maybe some things that I'm not doing that I should be doing. But then when you start digging and asking me, well, what have you done, Steve? You go, do you know what? There's loads of things that you really need to do, Steve, right now.
But we give our members a legal checklist and an audit. But what I think they also really value is listening to other businesses' questions and problems in the surgeries, because it's all very similar issues. It's rare that there's a totally unique problem. You can always learn something from somebody else's issue. And to be able to learn from a real life scenario, and for me to, because of my experience, not just 27 years of legal experience, but huge commercial experience in setting up my own business as well, to actually have the law transposed into the reality of what's going on in the day-to-day of a small business. It's just invaluable. And so many of our members say, gosh, I hadn't even thought about that. That would never have crossed my mind.
No.
But now they're like, I must go and sort that out. And it's going to save them from a much bigger problem down the line.
I think, to be absolutely honest with you, that's exactly where I am. I've been doing this for a long time now, 29 years. And even after all that time, if I did your checklist, there'd be some things that I go, well, I don't understand what this is and what I need to do exactly. And other things that I'd think, I really ought to get round to that after 29 years in business, and hopefully most people you'll catch a little bit before then, ideally when they're... we do have
a lot of very new businesses, because it depends on your attitude to risk. A lot of time I find that women, we probably have like an 80% female membership, I would say.
Okay.
And I think that women's attitude to risk is very different often to the male attitude to risk. And a lot of women, it really holds them back in putting their offers out there, in doing marketing, etc. But if they don't feel confident that they know the legalities around that, we find that energetically they are really held back. And then as soon as they know what they need to know, they've got their terms of business in place, etc., they're much more willing and confident to really, sort of go out there. So it's, I think it depends on your attitude to risk. And certainly, I think you're lucky that if you've not had 29 years in and you've not sort of nailed all of your legals and you've not had too
Well,
many
I'm not
interviews,
sure I
you're
am.
doing well.
You have to send me your checklist. I'll let you know what I've done and what I haven't done. Maybe I ought to join you. As I sit here now, I'm thinking, do you know what? I really need to sign up to your program. So send me your checklist to start with, and maybe we'll move forward that way as well. You know.
So you mentioned program then. So obviously it's a membership in that you've got access to all the resource and everything. But as I said, because we're so keen on encouraging people to be proactive, we have a roadmap which essentially guides people through all of the foundational legal issues where you need to put protections in place, be compliant, etc. And we have a course that sits alongside that, included in the membership, so that can work through it and be really confident that they've put all of their legal protections in place. And then of course we're also there on the reactive side as well if issues do happen. We have a lot of questions like that in the surgeries. We had a member come in and unfortunately she'd looked at trademarking but had found it a little bit too overwhelming. She got a bit stuck with the searches and what classes to register in and things like that. And we've got a trademark course as part of the membership. So she joined, she was like, right, and she did the course all fine, but she got to the searches. And unfortunately, in the 3 months that it had taken her from sort of starting and stopping to doing my course, a French company had come in, swooped in and actually trademarked her name, doing exactly the same thing as she is doing. So she's now got to do an expensive rebrand, because she hadn't secured it when she first thought about doing it. So it's I think the sooner that you can do things and be proactive and put things in place, the better, because we don't have a crystal ball to know what's going to happen when.
No, absolutely. And as I say, prevention is much better than cure. So just to clarify for me and for everybody listening today, membership, what do people get when they join? What sort of, what do you do?
So we've got a few different levels of membership because we appreciate that people are at different stages of their business and with different budgets, I suppose. So we have a starter level of membership. Which is very affordable. It's sort of, at the moment it might increase, but at the moment it's sort of sub £50 a month. And that gives you access to all of my templates apart from our HR module. So that's about 90 legal templates. So pretty much every legal template you're ever likely to need. It gives you access to 10 of my courses on every legal area that you're likely to need, like trademarking, GDPR compliance, copyright and content protection, negotiation techniques, client contracts deep dive, recession proofing your business, selling internationally, selling one-to-many. I think there's a special coaches course on there. Anyway, about 10 sort of full sort of 4 hour plus courses. We have the roadmap course, like I talked about, which really sort of pulls it all together in a very modular way if you want to work through everything and make sure that everything's in place. We have lots of extra resources, checklists, fact sheets. We have two AI offerings, like I said. People are loving those. This is all included in the starter level of membership. They also have access to recordings of all the surgeries that I've done previously, which is all searchable by keyword. All of the trainings that I've done previously, again, searchable by keyword. And what that level of membership doesn't have is access to me individually. So they get all the recordings, but they don't get access to me. The next level is solo membership, which is just under the £100 mark. And that includes all of that, plus access to me on the live surgeries, which people just find invaluable because, they can say, I've, got this clause, this contract from a corporate and I don't really understand this clause. It mentions the indemnified, but I don't really know what that means. Can you let me know, should I agree to it? How can I negotiate it, etc. And I'll give them a sort of mini masterclass in how to actually negotiate that particular clause, how best to go back, etc. I can also I also regularly will draft clauses that people want to add into contracts. It might be that, maybe they are, one example in particular, refund requests. So we have a lot of coaches who have programs, mentoring programs, that kind of thing. Refund requests are common. We had one lady who, selling internationally, had a number of US students on her course. They weren't happy because they'd assumed it would be presented in a slightly different way. And one of them had a US lawyer. As we know, people in the US very litigious. Suddenly they'd sort of, a group of them had banded together and were demanding a refund, or they'd sort of take her to court. And that was going to cost her about £36,000 to do that refund. She didn't have the money. She was, really worried about having to declare herself bankrupt because she was a sole trader. And probably one of the most stressful, sort of periods of her life. And then that was just before she came into the membership, actually.
Okay.
And then I helped her with that as part of the membership.
Yeah, great.
And said, look, here's what you need to do in the future to make sure that never happens again, etc.
Yeah.
So that's the solo level has access to me, where you can get that kind of, guidance that's really going to make a difference in your business. And then we have a growing level, which is about the 250 a month mark, which is for businesses that have employees.
Yeah.
So we have sort of specialist employment training, and access to about 40 or 50 specific HR and health and safety documents as well. Wow. So it's a super comprehensive. There's a few more bells and whistles as well, but that's it in its core. So it's really about that proactivity, that education, empowerment, but also having access to, without wishing to blow my own trumpet, I probably have the most far-reaching experience of any lawyer in the UK, because I've done those £1 billion deals, but I've also worked really hands-on with people who I would describe as hobby business owners, because I feel very strongly that no business should be priced out of quality legal support, because even if you've got a hobby business, all kinds of horrible things can happen. And I think, people don't appreciate that.
No.
And that's, I strongly feel that often it's, older ladies who in retirement have started a hobby business, and they don't realise all of the pitfalls that can, that can befall them.
I really get that. I really do.
Yeah.
And I got to say, and I'm not just saying this because, I'm on here with you, but that, for me, I'm immediately thinking, wow, that is amazing value, If you compare that with, back when you were, working for the big law firms, I don't know what your hourly rate was then, but I know it was a lot more than the, £100 that you're paying per month, or somebody's paying per month, or even the $299,
It is phenomenal value. I mean, my charge-out rate, if I was still at the law firm that I worked at, would be near to £2,000 an hour now.
£2,000 an hour. Okay. So I can now access you from £50 upwards, depending on the size of my business.
So not the £50 a month membership. You can get the recordings.
I get that. I get that. Not quite you live, but still your expertise. And all your templates and so on and so forth. Yeah. So very, very valuable.
Our driving mission is to keep it affordable, so that even the smallest of businesses can afford it, because it's so important to me.
It's interesting, listening to you mainly. But I think in a way we're on the same path. When I started all those years ago, I thought to myself, right, okay, I was thinking about what I'm going to do and how I'm going to move things forward. And my goal, I set back then, and it's still as true as it is today, was to try to help small businesses. Why? Because it's really tough running a small business. And I believe that, if you're in a big business, you've got all the marketing expertise. You hire people like yourself who are legal experts. You've probably got full-time legal departments. And yet, smaller businesses, we don't. We just have to try and do our best with a limited knowledge. And as I said right at the beginning, there's no way I can be I'm not an IT expert, I'm not a finance expert, I'm not a legal expert, I'm not an HR expert. All those levels of business that I need some level of expertise in. But my expertise is in sales and marketing. And, and that's great.
And what we really encourage people to think about is, like when you set up your own small business, most small business owners will think, okay, I need a bookkeeper and an accountant. That kind of a non-negotiable.
Like,
and we find that they don't think the same about on the legal side.
No.
And it's absolutely, if not more, important.
Yeah.
Because you can actually, if you're a very small business, you can file your own accounts.
Yeah.
You don't actually need an accountant to file your accounts for you. You can go on, ChatGPT could probably do it for you, put it in the right format.
No doubt.
And you just upload it to Companies House, But I think that, it's strange, the mindset. And part of my role, I suppose, is really educating that wider sort of small business community mindset into making them see that having legal protection in place is not a nice to have. It is an essential. And I often quote on some of the webinars that I do. There was an official survey. They do them every few years. The Legal Services Board look into the legal needs of small businesses. And they found in the most recent one that the average small business owner experiences, on average, 8 legal issues a year.
Wow.
And that each legal issue, on average, costs nearly £7,000 each.
Wow.
And not only that, it found that the people who were most likely to be really affected by a legal issue were businesses not yet making any profit and businesses turning over less than £50,000.
Right. Wow.
Which is, again, why not only do I know those stats, but I get the phone calls from the very small businesses when things do go wrong.
Yeah.
So I've got that backdrop, and I think a lot of small business owners, you start up, you think, oh, what's the worst that can happen? Well, there's a plug for my podcast. Go and have a listen to my podcast, which is What's the Worst That Can Happen, where I interview business owners who've been in business for sort of up to 10 years, and we talk about what's the worst that has happened and what is actually, from my legal point of view, what is the worst that could happen. And it's really eye-opening, because I think a lot of people, particularly like coaches, consultants, they are like, oh, well, nothing's going to happen. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
And it's because they don't really understand the legal
you're right.
backdrop.
Yeah.
And they don't understand the risks that they sort of put their head in the sand, one of the two. But they don't give it, generally, I'd say, not always, but I'd say a good 80% of small business owners don't give the legals as much attention as they deserve. And then they wonder why they're constantly, firefighting.
Yes.
They're, giving refunds when they don't need to. They're not getting paid. They're finding that, competitors are stealing their IP and they don't know what to do about it, etc.
Yeah.
A whole host of things that people might not think of legal issues, but it's essentially those stresses in your business that you could very easily stop happening if you took a step back and put the right protections in place.
I remember listening to Dan Bradbury. I don't know whether you know of Dan, but
I'm in his mastermind, actually.
Oh, you're right. Okay, yeah, he's one of the guys like Daniel Priestley you mentioned. Two people I've learnt lots from over the years. And Dan Bradbury says that there's a direct correlation between the amount of success you have in business to the amount of legal cases that you have in business. And that, clearly the more, you grow, it just happens. But again, I come back to the prevention rather than cure.
Yeah, obviously, the bigger you are, likely the more issues you're going to get. But equally, we don't have a crystal ball. And some people right out of the gates get an issue, like the incorrect collateral in place and everything, and then got a cease and desist letter saying, you're infringing our trademark. Unless you stop using it immediately, we're going to be taking you to court. And that was a very expensive lesson, a lot of wasted time, a ton of wasted money. And because she didn't take, 5 minutes to do a trademark search because she didn't know that was something that she needed to do.
Yeah. I've got a friend who's an accountant, and he set up a business, and he'd got a name very similar to another accountancy practice business, and he got in all sorts of, I mean, he'd spent thousands getting his website and his domain and all his logo and branding and everything, and he sort of lost it all and had to start again. So it was a real nightmare for him, as you say, right at the beginning. You know, he'd formed this new firm, and he was just getting it going, and then he got a letter through the post saying, you know, cease and desist. So really, really.
Well,
powerful.
as we often say, you can either build your dream business or you can build your nightmare business. And really, a lot of it does come down to taking that little bit of time and effort up front to educate yourself, to put your legal foundations in place. And then I say, you know, find it so much of an easier journey because you've got that confidence, that peace of mind, and you're not firefighting all the time. You know, you've got your processes and systems and protections in place. You know what you're doing, and you know, it's so much easier to grow your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're sort of coming towards the end of our time. If people want to find out more about your membership or even sign up to your membership, what should they do, Suzanne?
So the best place to go is my website, SuzanneDibble.com. And if you want to email our support team, they're at support@SuzanneDibble.com. I have regular masterclasses on the sort of 7 fundamentals of legal protection, which gives a really good overview of what you need to think about. And then we explain how the membership works as sort of part of that and in more detail. So I think probably the best thing to do would be for people to sign up to my email list. They'll get an invite to that webinar and come and, you know, hear more about the legal issues that you need to think about, and then you'll have an opportunity to join the membership after that webinar. If you're really eager to join, just email us and we'll make sure that we help you decide which is the right level for you.
Fantastic.
But also I'm on social media, so if you want to follow, I did put loads of really useful practical tips on my Instagram account. So I'm at Suzanne Dibble on Instagram. I am on Facebook as Suzanne Dibble, the small business law expert. I think I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn, but I don't use those. My social media person does them for me, but I don't. Right. Like those.
It's good when you've got one of those.
I must like LinkedIn more, but I just don't. I'm afraid.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, so reach out one of those ways. That, you know, if you want one of the team to sort of help you with what's the best level, then email us at support@SuzanneDibble.com. Just really, just wanting to spread the word about how we can help people, because it's such a vital part of your business going forwards. Fantastic. You know, it's essential. So, and we are absolutely. I would say this, wouldn't I? But I truly believe that we are the best offering out there in the UK for what you're getting, for the price, for my level of expertise. Yeah. I feel really passionate about that. When I see other, sort of similar businesses and they're selling templates for like £250, and I think what you can get in my membership, I feel like taking out a big billboard, everywhere,
don't buy this,
don't
buy
waste
that.
your money over there.
We're super passionate. I definitely get the passion, which is good. You've got to be passionate about, what you do and what you love. So I always think when you've got your own business like you have and I have, it's almost like your baby, isn't it? It's like, for me, I've always believed that if I won 50 million on the lottery tomorrow, I'd still do what I do, because I love doing what I do. And 100%. I think you'd probably be the same. I also feel very protective over the small business community. Yeah, I do.
I don't want them to be ripped off. I don't want them to go to lesser sort of experience.
No, I agree. I'm the same. And I hate the fact that 80% go bust within 5 years. That's a terrible statistic, because people put their lives into it, their savings, their redundancy sometimes. And, we all hear of people losing their house, because their business is
100%.
probably not protected properly, and it's a very sad situation that. But anyway, let's not end on such a downer. Let's end on a big thank you to you. I really appreciate it. It's been brilliant. It's been a real education for me, and I'm sure it has for everybody listening.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and I know I talk a lot, but it is because I'm really
that's fine.
passionate about it.
That was absolutely fine. I've got a load of questions, and I think you've covered everything that I was going to ask. We got a good structure.
I was going to say, if it would help, I can give you a copy of our sort of legal audit to put in your
brilliant.
to give your community as a sort of freebie, if that would help people to sort of identify
that
the
would
gaps.
be absolutely fantastic if you could do that. And I'm really interested in looking at it myself for my own business. But I will definitely upload that probably to several places. Or email me steve@steve-mills.com, and I'll send you a copy of it, or obviously Suzanne as well. So thank you ever so much for everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your ongoing participation with the Results Mastery podcast. If you've not yet subscribed, then do so. And if you want to hear more from me, there's the website on the screen behind me, results-mastery.com. Thanks very much for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you next time. Thank you.
Recording stopped.